Well, folks, we got clickbaited by Democrats. Now, that's not to make fun of Democrats. It's also not to make fun of Republicans. Remember, I try my best to be in the middle. It's just to say, we got clickbaited. And that's because in a new report out from Goldman Sachs, the actual Inflation Reduction Act, which was supposed to reduce the budget deficit. You remember that? The idea was, we're going to pass the Inflation Reduction Act because it's actually going to reduce government spending over 10 years because we're going to hire 80,000 new IRS agents to audit more Americans and get more taxes for our spending programs. Well, the idea was it was going to reduce our budget debt. But according to a new report by Goldman Sachs, apparently all of the subsidies in the Inflation Reduction Act are actually going to cost 3 times more than originally estimated, potentially up to an additional $1.2 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office originally forecasted that the green subsidies would cost around $391 billion between 2022 and 2031, and that number would then be offset by more auditing via IRS agents and recaptures and cutting in whatever places. Well, unfortunately, since that $391 billion in spending will actually be closer to $1.2 trillion in spending, according to Goldman Sachs, it appears that accounting tricks have helped reduce the way the Congressional Budget Office actually ended up calculating what the cost of the Inflation Reduction Act was, which means that congressmen and women were actually misled on the costs of the Inflation Reduction Act by a factor of 3, which also means the tailwinds for the energy sector and the electric car sector and battery sector are probably 3 times as great as what we previously assumed them to be. So this is kind of like a good news, bad news piece. But I was excited to talk about this because Matt Kors, sup man, popped in and said, why is everyone so focused on fighting inflation via Fed rate hikes rather than slowing down government spending? Well, it's because even when the government tells us that a temporary program is going to save us money, it actually ends up costing more money. Because after all, there is nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. Let that one sink in. So, how exactly? Well, here you go. Electric vehicles are going to be about $380 billion more expensive than previously thought. Why? Because more vehicles are actually meeting the criteria than the Congressional Budget Office previously estimated. Remember at the beginning of the year when everybody freaked out that some SUVs were eligible for the $7,500 tax credit and the Tesla Model Y wasn't eligible for it along with some other vehicles? Why did it seem so stupid that Congress would pass something that would give electric vehicles a $7,500 tax credit, but only some and not others? It almost felt politically motivated. Or it was an accounting trick from day one to get the bill to pass under the guise that, oh, wait a minute, this is not going to cost that much, let's pass it, and then you got clickbaited and it actually does cost a lot. Now, I want you to know something before I go through some more of the details here, okay? This is really important. And no, it's not a reminder to check out the sponsored links on life insurance or the courses on building your wealth or 12 free stocks with Webull in the links down below in the description. It's actually a reminder to teach you something very, very important about politics. Democrats generally want to pass more spending. That is obvious. I think we can all agree with that, right? Republicans generally want less spending. And Democrats like potentially higher taxes, and Republicans sometimes like lower taxes, right? That's a general theme. That's not true in every case. It's not true for every person, but that's a generalization if we were to make one, right? But watch this, okay? You ready for this? Because this is the most ridiculous part about politics, and you should vomit over this. In fact, it's so ridiculous that I'm going to draw how ridiculous it is for you, okay? Watch this. So, when a Democrat raises spending and they say, you know what, we're going to make spending go up. That is, we're going to spend more money on green, energy, and we're going to raise taxes or whatever. What usually happens is Republicans get mad because they don't want to raise spending. So Republicans potentially then get voted into office, right? So when you see a Democratic regime turn into a Republican regime, what do the Republicans do about that increased spending? Do they cut that increased spending? Well, wait a minute. What is that increased spending? Well, that increased spending is actually a subsidy for EVs, like electric vehicles or solar or whatever, right? Or solar or energy products, right? It's a subsidy, which means it makes it cheaper for you to buy it. But wait a minute. If Republicans get rid of a subsidy, then getting rid of the subsidy is actually a tax increase. And Republicans don't like tax increases. Oh God, no. We don't want to increase taxes. So what happens? Democrats spend more money and the Republicans don't cut the subsidies because that would be a tax increase. And they don't like that. So they keep the programs. So in other words, in a nutshell, any temporary program from the government basically turns out to be permanent. Because if you rug pull it away again, you basically just raise taxes. And nobody wants to do that. So, politics is a joke. With that said, let's keep going. So, electric vehicles are expecting to cost $379 billion more thanks to expanded definitions of what kind of vehicles are actually covered. Ford's battery plant, in partnership with the Chinese CATL battery manufacturer, which is a Tesla supplier as well, will cost the government approximately $1.5 billion a year in credits alone. This will help reduce the cost of battery production about 35 to 42%, which is fantastic. Listen, I want you to hear this very, very closely, okay? Listen very closely. If you like investing where stimulus checks go, look at pricing power electric vehicle plays, energy plays, and chip plays. Because the government is sending massive billions of dollars of stimmy checks to them. And if they told you the number was X, you could basically say the number is 2 to 3X, because that's what happens with government spending, which means it's kind of like they're sending a stimmy check to you for $1,000, but when you get it, it's accidentally $3,000. And you're like, just not gonna say anything. So, hello, if you're investing in stocks, think about that for a moment. And yeah, wherever Steve is, yeah, that could be a boon for commodities as well, even though I hate your pet rocks. Anyway, so the idea now is that Goldman Sachs is forecasting this $1.2 trillion overage might actually, okay, now it just gets ridiculous. You ready for this? This gets ridiculous. So the government program that was supposed to cost $369 billion is actually going to cost $1.2 trillion. But wait a minute. Now apply the velocity of money. That is, when $1 is spent, it creates $2 to $3. Goldman Sachs actually thinks that the $369 billion in government spending that creates a $1.2 trillion set of actual spending will be worth $3 trillion of investments into green energy across the economy thanks to the velocity of money. So, let me be clear again. If in the short term you want to trade stocks, that's fine. You can jump on over here and use yourself Webull and do it all you want. It's a fantastic app. It's my favorite. It beats like the TDs and the Fidelity. God, those things are... Anyway, my favorite. Get 12 free stocks when you sign up. Link down below. But what it actually means, in my opinion, is that companies like Enphase, Tesla, Nvidia, AMC, these are all companies I own, SolarEdge. So yeah, I'm talking my book here, but I'm also reading a Wall Street Journal piece going, holy crap, that's even, like, I invested not even realizing how good it was going to be. It's going to be freaking amazing. So keep that in mind. Now, it's also, this is interesting for those commodity buffs, okay? All of this green spending could actually lead to higher oil and gas prices. I'm sorry, okay? I'm not trying to like take your mind and like throw it one way and then like yoink it back the other way. Okay, I'm sorry. But yes, Now, why would that logically be true? Because oil and gas companies invest in big green projects. BP, British Petroleum, you know, the oil spill bros, they have half as many EV chargers as Tesla does. That's crazy. It's a petroleum company and they have half as many EV chargers as Tesla does. Because they want the credits, man. They're like, oh, give me the credits. I want to motorboat the credits. I mean, you can't blame them because there's so much money. Here, want credits for wind farms? Here you go. Want credits? Occidental Petroleum. Warren Buffett invests there. What do? Massive carbon capture technology. Loses money hand over fist. Have credits. It's government socialism for oil companies in the form of green energy. Yeah, it's actually happening. So, what do oil companies potentially want to do? Well, potentially invest less in oil fracking or gas refineries because you're going to make a lot more money off tax credits doing green projects instead. Yep, that's what's happening. In fact, listen to this. Last year, Ron DeSantis, Ronnie Donnie in Florida. What does Trump call him? Ron DeSanctimonious. I don't think that one's as good. But anyway, Ronnie last year vetoed a bill that would have reduced solar subsidies for homes because he called it a tax. So what I talked about earlier is the perfect example of how government can expand under Democrats and stay expanded under Republicans. And Ronnie just did the same thing last year in Florida. And I love Florida. Look, I spent 16 years growing up in Florida. I love Florida. Florida's fantastic. It'll be fantastic for my startup house hack as well. Go to househack.com to learn more. Investing deadline March 31st if you're accredited. Non-accredited, hopefully May, June. Hopefully. We'll see. So anyway, where's some of the other money going? Green manufacturing, $156 billion more. Energy efficiency, $42 billion more. Hydrogen, $36 billion more. Biofuels, $34 billion more. Renewable production, solar, wind, geo, $82 billion more. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I don't think we really care so much about those specific details. What we do care about is the fact that if you think the Inflation Reduction Act is free, you're wrong. It's going to cost $1.2 trillion, according to Goldman Sachs, more than we expected via the Wall Street Journal. What does that mean for us as normal people? Well, it probably means that investing in things like EVs and energy companies will get a lot more money than we previously thought. And it probably extends to the CHIPS Act as well, where we're basically paying for companies like Intel to go make new plants, and they'll end up getting a lot more money than you expect. I mean, right now, there are still fights going on in the auto lobby to get the Treasury Department to loosely interpret more EV tax credit rules. There's a reason why when you go to Tesla.com, they go and say, hey, you got to buy a Tesla before the end of the month because the government's taking away the tax credits. They're raising your taxes. There's a reason Tesla's doing it because A, it's a good marketing pitch, and B, it's pressure on the government. Now, Investing with Kendrick has a response and says Kevin is the new top G. That's impossible. I'm not in jail. Ooh, too soon. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't do that. Sorry, I'm getting too excited. Anyway, I'm going to push this button now. Did it work? Yeah, there we go. So, smash that like button. Get yourself life insurance in as little as 5 minutes. Link down below. Get 12 free stocks by going to metkevin.com/free. Join me in the private live streams every day now. Course member live streams for every course member Monday through Friday, usually when the market's open, and Elite Hustlers on weekends. So check out those programs. Link down below. And yeah, thank you. Yesterday I was texting with Lauren, and Lauren always gets nervous when I go flying alone, because it's like, hey, don't meet any girls. And I'm like, I text her, and this is a true story, by the way. I'm like, you want to see the only sign of girls that I've seen? And I'm not going to mention the city name here, okay? I'm not going to mention what city this was. But one of the cities I went to, I told her, I go, Lauren, let me send you the only sign of girls that I've seen in this city. Ready for it? There it is. That was the only sign of girls. I kid you not. Physical sign. A flashing sign. I'm like, get me out of here.